Welcome back to Philosophy and Ethics in Games, the series where I break down the stories in some of our favorite games and ask the tough questions to figure out what is right and what is wrong. I'm Josh Bearheart Hawk, and today we're tying a bow on the story of Grand Theft Auto 5. In case you missed any of the previous episodes in the Philosophy and Ethics series, I've linked a playlist in the description below. As I continue to break down this and other games, I'll add new videos to the playlist so you can find them all in one place. So far, we've had a lot of ups and downs as we've followed Franklin, Michael, and Trevor in their San Andreas exploits, and as the sun rises on the finale of their tale, there are still a few loose ends to tie up and some payback to be had. When we started this whole thing, Franklin was stuck living with his aunt in a life he wanted desperately to escape. Michael was a miserable old man living off past glories and waiting on the blood to stop pumping through his veins. And Trevor was living his best life in the desert of Sandy Shores. Over the course of the story, we've seen Franklin move into a mansion and pull off scores he never thought possible alongside the oddest couple in Los Santos. Trevor didn't really change much as he's still the same lovable ball of energy that he was in the beginning. He owns an extra plane or two and an airfield now, but for the most part, he's doing just as well as he was the day that he knocked off Johnny and took out the Lost MC. But not everyone is doing as good as or better than when we found them, as Michael has seen a marked decrease in his quality of life over the course of the story. Sure, he's still living in the same house, but now it's a little more empty as the family he didn't even know he wanted around has left him. His wife has taken up with her yoga instructor, and the kids are doing God knows what somewhere in the city of saints as Michael continues to drown himself in booze and self-pity. But as we begin the final chapter, the clouds begin to part and a ray of hope shines through from the last place that Michael would expect. Jimmy, who kind of made things in the family a million times worse by drugging Michael and lying about it, shows up and offers a half-hearted apology before encouraging his dad to get the family back together. He tells Michael that Amanda really just wants him to show that he cares by being willing to fight for her and come after her. And while that would seem to show a level of dysfunction only achievable in a game, it actually kind of highlights a major problem that many people have in their relationships in the real world. A problem that kills way too many relationships but is often overlooked. Communication issues. A lot of couples fight, and some fight on a regular basis like Michael and Amanda. These disagreements might be about any number of things, ranging from money issues to problems with the kids or the division of labor and weekend plans. But the one thing that is usually at the root of all of the fights is an inability to understand each other and compromise. Maybe one person thinks that they should be able to do something that the other person asked them not to do, or doesn't want to do something that they think the other should be doing instead. Maybe one made a purchase they shouldn't have made, or spent a night out with friends instead of helping around the house or with the kids. In all of these scenarios, a failure to really sit down and understand each other escalates things, and if not addressed in the relationship, it can lead to separation and divorce. In the case of Michael and Amanda, he wasn't listening to her grievances, and he didn't want to share how he was feeling. But it goes a lot deeper because they have a history of substance abuse and infidelity that just compounds the problem. We can imagine that they likely were happy at some point with each other, as they did decide to get married and have kids, but from the callback to the conversation they had about Michael's decision to make a deal with Dave Norton, we can also surmise the biggest issues they had stemmed from getting out of North Yankton and moving to Los Santos. We talked a little bit about that previously, but as a refresher, Michael decided to make a deal to get himself, Amanda, and the kids out of the life of crime that he'd been leading, without talking to Amanda about it first. We only hear his side of the conversation as he's driving to the graveyard, but from the sound of things, he made the unilateral decision to make the deal, and she wasn't too happy about it. He justifies it to her by saying that either they could all die or one could get out, and he was the one that was getting out because he cared about her and the kids. And this isn't uncommon, with older guys like Michael being especially prone to the idea that they should be the ones making all of the decisions for the household while everyone else just goes along with it. In that situation, he should have consulted her about what she wanted as well, and they should have made the decision together. By not including her in the conversation, Michael has taken away her agency and is forcing her to go along with his decision whether she likes it or not. And things didn't get any better after they moved to the city of Los Santos either, as Michael would wind up cheating on her and spending his days drinking and avoiding the woman that he says he loves. At some point, she started openly cheating on him as a way to take back some of the power she felt that she had lost in the relationship, and things just spiraled from there. By the time we meet Michael and Amanda, whatever love they might have once had for each other is long gone, and they're more or less just in a marriage to keep up appearances and drive each other crazy. There is nothing healthy about this dynamic, and they both deserve the opportunity to be happy. They need to be honest about how they feel, and end the relationship if it isn't working. But what fun would the story be if they were a happy couple in a loving relationship, right? As it is, Michael rides in to save Amanda from a boring date with Fabian, and they decide to maybe try reconciling by meeting up at Dr. Friedlander's office once Michael has rounded up Tracy. Normally, I would say that therapy was a great place to start if they want to repair their relationship, but I'm not really sure that Dr. Friedlander is the best person to help them. That aside, rescuing Tracy from herself is the next stop for Michael and Jimmy, as the young woman has gotten herself in another bind that includes the rat known as Laszlo. He's trying to get in her pants at a tattoo shop in Vinewood, and we can't let that stand at all. By the time Michael is done with him, Laszlo has a couple of new piercings and a brand new tattoo that fits his personality perfectly. In getting back into the car, the family heads off to the therapist's office to work things out and come back together once and for all. After getting his family back, Michael turns his attention to his new passion, the thing that he's decided will be his new career moving forward: making movies. He's been working with Solomon Richards, and the movie they're collaborating on is almost done when Solomon surprises Michael by listing him in the credits as the executive producer of the thing. That is a dream come true for Michael, but the dream very nearly becomes a nightmare as Devin Weston shows up to tell him and Solomon that he's pulled the plug on the movie in an attempt to collect on the insurance policy and make some extra coin. Weston's assistant takes the reel of the film and heads for the airport, with the intent of taking it somewhere remote to be destroyed. Michael can't let that happen though, and there's a wild chase that winds through the streets of Los Santos and onto the runways of the Los Santos airport before ending in a hangar where Molly discovers why you should never stand in front of the engine of a plane. But it turns out the entire chase was unnecessary, because the physical reel that Molly took was just a decoy, as the film was being made with more modern tech. In fact, there is a premiere scheduled for it as the studio is putting the finishing touches on it, and within a few days, Michael, Amanda, Jimmy, and Tracy are all planning to attend and walk down the red carpet. While the women get ready at home, the boys meet up at a clothing store before climbing in a stretch limo and heading to the show. It would all be the perfect end to a perfect reunion if it weren't for one small hiccup. Devin Weston isn't happy about what happened to Molly, and he's out for revenge. He's got plenty of contracts at places like Merriweather, and it turns out he sent some of their goons to teach Michael a lesson by killing his wife and daughter. That plan doesn't work out for Devin, though, as Michael is able to save his family with a little help from Jimmy, and he vows revenge. That revenge will have to wait, however, as there are more pressing matters. There is one big job that Michael and the crew need to pull off before they can do anything else: robbing the Union Depository. Ever since their earliest days running together, Michael, Lester, and Trevor have dreamed of robbing one of the most highly guarded banks in the world. It's something none of them ever thought would actually be possible, but that didn't stop them from dreaming. That dream fell apart on a couple of occasions though, with Michael's betrayal of the team causing a lot of friction and animosity. and the fact that they are even considering pulling off the monumental job is a testament to how badly they want to do it. They've already done the recon by the time everyone meets up in the Vanilla Unicorn, and all that's left to do is to plan their approach and prepare. There are a couple of options when it comes to how they go about stealing the gold, and while both plans look like straight-up suicide missions, there is one that makes a little more sense and appeals to me the most. That would be the quiet approach, where the team steals a couple of armored cars that usually run pickup from the bank and then drive in, have the bank willingly hand over the money, and drive out the front door with no fuss. I can't really explain it, but to me those are always the most fun kind of jobs, whether it's something happening in a game, a movie, or a TV show. The idea of just walking into a place like that, having them hand you the money without even realizing they are being robbed, and walking out with no one being harmed is just peak awesomeness. If I had to nail down the reason, I think it's probably because of how much more difficult it is to pull something like that off. Anyone can walk in, guns blazing or threatening force, and scare people into doing what they want. It takes a special kind of cunning and an extremely cool demeanor to plan something and execute it without anyone being the wiser until it's much too late to do anything about it. The crew winds up stealing a few cars and tricking them out to make sure they can handle the weight of the gold, and stealing a police van to acquire some police spike strips so they can ambush and hijack the trucks that they need for the job. The whole thing goes off without a hitch. Except for the tiny issue of Merryweather once again showing their ugly faces as they've somehow managed to suss out the operation. What should have been a walk in the park turns into a shootout as the crew loads the gold into the getaway cars and then takes off with Merryweather hot on their tail. Thankfully, even that turn of events was planned for, as there are a pair of big rigs ready for them to disappear into at just the right moment, and Merryweather is once again left in the dust at the hands of Michael, Franklin, and Trevor. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows, as the crew meets back up at Michael's house to celebrate, only to wind up breaking down and arguing with each other over their past mistakes. Honestly, this isn't really too unexpected, as it happens a lot when groups of people find a lot of success and sudden wealth. Most commonly, it might be seen in bands, where they get a sudden surge of fame and wind up fizzling out because each member of the band wants to be the star. They argue and bicker behind the scenes before finally breaking the band up and going their separate ways, though it's kind of rare that they ever find the same level of success as solo acts. In this particular instance, each member of the crew has their own dreams and desires, and they've all got a level of ego that is bound to get in the way at some point. That kind of thing could result in one of them snitching, maybe trying to secure their own future and ensure that they don't have to worry about the feds coming after them someday. But it's not like there's anyone in the group that would ever do that, right? Joking aside, they wind up going their separate ways, and that might be a fitting into the story and the game in general. But there is one more problem that needs to be dealt with before we can close the curtain for good. As things seem to be calming down, Agents Norton and Haynes approach Franklin one evening with a simple request. They see Trevor Phillips as nothing more than a loose cannon and a liability, and they say that he needs to go. They can't be involved, but Trevor trusts Franklin, meaning the young man can get close enough to take him out without too much trouble. As if that wasn't enough, Devin Weston shows up at Franklin's house and tells him that Michael needs to die, and that he needs to be the one to do it. If Franklin refuses, Devin promises to make his life a living hell, and it seems like there is no way out of this mess. On the one hand, Trevor has been chaotic at best, and murderous at worst when Franklin has worked with him. But he has been a better mentor in a lot of ways than Michael, and actually seems to care about Franklin in his own way. On the other hand, Michael was the person responsible for bringing Franklin into this new, higher tier of the criminal underworld, and he helped to make connections for Franklin that he wouldn't have otherwise had. Both men kind of deserve to die, but in reality, neither of them actually does, despite their flaws. Even Michael, who has been a traitor and a snake on his worst days, should have a chance to prove that this new version of himself, the movie-making family man who's actually going to be there for his friends, is real. Thankfully, despite Weston and the FIB agents' insistence on needing to fall in line, Franklin has a third option that is considered a death wish. Instead of killing one of the men, he can choose to team up with them and take down the problems that they all face together. After a brief meeting with Lester, where the pair come up with what might just be the craziest plan any of them has had, Franklin picks up his buddy Lamar and meets Michael and Trevor at an old steelworks building to take on Merryweather in a fight for the ages. Wave after wave of trained mercenaries comes piling in, but the group holds their own and comes out victorious. Riding that success, they split up and each take out a problem for one of the others. Franklin takes out Wei Chang, Trevor's biggest rival in Sandy Shores. Michael takes out Franklin and Lamar's enemy, Stretch. And Trevor ends the television career of Steve Haynes so that he can never bother Michael or Agent Norton again. Once those problems are dealt with, there is one more foe each of them wants to see gone: Devin Weston. Weston thinks he's safe in his mansion in the hills, but Trevor isn't about to be stopped, and after a brief fight with the last remnants of Merryweather, Weston is unceremoniously thrown into the trunk of one of his cars and driven to an overlook where Franklin and Michael meet up with him and Trevor to end things once and for all. As the sun sets over the horizon, the three protagonists we've spent the past few weeks getting to know ride off and go their separate ways, and the credits roll. This has definitely been one of the most fun games to cover here in the Philosophy and Ethics in Games series, and has challenged me in several ways. It's been interesting to see the world from each of the different characters' perspectives, and to try to imagine how each of them would look at the events in their own way, with their own motivations, needs, and desires. It was also a major challenge to figure out how to break this game down, as there isn't really a traditional chapter structure, and I had to move some of the things around to make it work just right. Moving forward, we're going to be jumping into The Last of Us Part 1 next week, and I'm really excited to cover that game, as seeing the contrast between the city of Los Santos as a modern metropolis and the ruined cities that Joel and Ellie walk through is actually kind of wild, and will definitely be among the things to discuss as we get into the story. But you'll need to make sure to subscribe to Lost in Games here on YouTube if you don't want to miss out on that and other games that I'll be covering down the road. You'll also want to hit the like button if you haven't already, as it helps push these kind of videos out in the algorithm while letting me and YouTube know that you enjoyed watching. If you want to help me out in other ways, I've got channel memberships here on YouTube, a Patreon, and a membership program over on my website, where you can sign up to toss a couple of bucks a month my way to help me get new games to cover while getting cool perks yourself, like having your name on the screen and exclusive content. That's all I've got for now. I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.